Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki Roush, will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to up-level your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven here to offer you tips, strategies, and techniques to master your sales conversation. Today's episode is a part of the Mastering Excellence series. And if you haven't heard this before, this comes from a concept in my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And once you understand the structure of how somebody is achieving exceptional results in some area of their life or business, you can apply that same structure so that you can get similar results. Now, my guest today is Brian Fretwell. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the founder of Finding Good. It's a company dedicated to helping people have more meaningful conversations. His methodology uses the science behind connection to make listening less transactional and more transformational. Oh, he speaks my language. Brian has spent his life exploring how listening can be the most effective tool for change when we use the right questions. As a teacher in juvenile corrections, he saw how better questions can influence behaviors. As a facilitator and consultant in mining, oil, and gas companies, he helps people see how better listening can help save lives. And today, he works with individuals, entire school districts, and large organizations to develop stronger connections through the power of questions. His TEDx has generated over 2.4 million views. His TikTok videos are viewed by millions monthly, and his book, Experts of Our Potential, is wildly popular as Brian is a natural, compelling, and engaging storyteller. Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I look forward to having some fun.
I'm so excited that
you
said yes to this. Mm-hmm. Now, we just met recently because we have a mutual client in common. Mm-hmm. Our client, Janine, introduced us. And the first thing when we got on our Zoom call, you asked me like, hey, where are you located? And I said, oh, I'm in Boise, Idaho. And your response was, I was so shocked by your response because it turns out that you are in Boise, Idaho, and we literally live like just a couple miles apart.
Right. Yeah.
The craziest thing.
Yeah, I think that was a first for me. I mean, I've had some people like in there, but definitely not like that. And I'm talking to Janine later today, so I don't know if she is aware yet or not. So
I haven't talked to her. Yeah. So yeah, it's so interesting because I don't know if she knew that we both lived in Boise, but the way she introduced us didn't really seem to have anything to do with that. It was more like, hey, you guys are doing some cool things and you should know each other kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about your business and what you do before we actually dive into the questions, because I am fascinated by you and what you're doing in the world.
Broadly, what we've been trying to do for 4 years. 4 years ago, I've been a professional consultant in my life. I was a speaker and I worked in culture change, but from a neuroscience perspective. So did leadership, culture change, ran workshops, and just understood neuroscience. But when the pandemic happened, we started this project that turned into a business. And what we're doing has always stayed the same. How we tell what we're doing and where we apply it has changed. And I think where we kind of sit on it today is really helping individuals and organizations uncover the hidden value that connection has, right? And sort of like helping them understand what connection is and how disconnection doesn't just cost time, productivity. It has some very detrimental costs, but I think we focus more on when we understand what connection is and how to create it, the value we create with each other is just exponential. It's one of the best things we can create within an organization or our daily relationships.
And right? Yeah, right. Like even outside the organization and just when you're meeting people, like I think one of the common things, and I think you even said this before we started recording, is like there's a lot of talk about connection and how important it is, but not everybody knows how to really do it and do it in an authentic, genuine way.
Yeah. Well, and how we kind of look at it, and I argue for it all the time, is like we're designed for connection. Like through human history, connection is actually the thing that has allowed us to be the top of the food chain, if you will, like our ability to connect in the way that humans connect, which is through the exchange of story, to build understanding, to build insight, to build validation, and to build purpose. Those are all elements of story that, when shared with another individual through connection, is where we actually get exponential value, right? And I would argue since the sort of industrial revolution, we've gotten away from how we're designed to connect, and now we have these ways of listening and connecting that don't actually give our brain what it needs to feel connected, but also that doesn't allow us to actually reap the real profound underlying benefits of connection.
What would you say are the real underlying benefits of connection?
So just starting like at the base level, and this will be kind of almost uncomfortable for some folks, but our ability to fully understand ourselves is dependent on connection. Our ability to have purpose as individuals is dependent on connection. Our confidence, our awareness, they're all connection dependent. And so when we think about those, like your organization's ability to not just have a purpose, but to act on that purpose, more importantly, is dependent on connection. The confidence in the organization, the ability to change in the organization, burnout, resilience, all of those are connection dependent. Now, they're not just like connection isn't the thing that ultimately solves all of those problems, but it is underlying, right, the majority of the organizational and individual challenges we have today.
So would you agree that it's foundational? Like in order for you to have a strong structure, you have to have a foundation of connection.
Yeah, and I think about it in terms of I always start with the individual, and so goes the individual, so goes the organization. Humans need connection at the same level they need food and water. And the easiest way to understand that is if you've had somebody pass away or leave suddenly, you hear it. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't think. And that's literally your brain reprioritizing connection over what would be on the bottoms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And even how we experience pain, our brain doesn't differentiate physical pain from what we call social pain or different forms of disconnection like rejection, isolation. It treats rejection in the same way that it's treating being hit in the leg with a stick or being chased by a bear. And when you're hit with a stick or being chased by a bear, all the rest of the brain shuts down to focus only on getting over this threat. Well, when disconnection is happening, or then we get into loneliness and isolation, those things, but these different forms of disconnection shut down our access to the rest of the parts of our brain we need to actually be able to thrive, to be able to think, to be able to get into the executive regions, because it puts us in a state of fight or flight.
So thinking about it I'm thinking about my listeners, majority of them are entrepreneurs. And so there is something to be said of that, they always say like entrepreneurship really is not it's not meant to be done on your own. Like you should have a community, you should have people that you can rely on and trust and feel that connection. And I feel like this is kind of that same piece. Like you can't expect to be successful if you're trying to be the lone wolf. Yeah.
A really good way to guarantee not success is thinking you're the lone wolf. And beyond just because I actually in the initial, as you explained it, it's not just trying to build a community. It's acknowledging that none of us are here without community. We wouldn't, this internet connection, you and I didn't make this. I mean, we live a mile and a half. We didn't hook that, So the more we're able to see that, We see we see the value in others, which allows us to be confident in the value we have in ourselves. Like it's like to some degree, it's really that simple. And so just acknowledging the community I have is a way of starting to build connection that allows my brain not to have to feel like I'm doing it on my own. Because if my brain feels isolated, and this is sort of the neuroscience behind it. If I'm in a group thousands of years ago, sitting around the campfire, if I'm sitting around the campfire by myself, I have to stay up all night worrying about where the bear's coming. If I'm sitting around with a group, I have to worry, maybe 1 hour a night about the bear. Because so we spread that, and that starts to happen here when I'm in my business thinking I have to do everything on my own. When do I sleep? When do I stop thinking? When do I not worry about what's here? And because I'm doing all that, when are you going to enjoy it?
Yeah.
Connection is what allows those things, right? Yeah.
What an incredibly simple yet profound just like comment. It reminds me of there's a description of NLP that says it's a comment on the obvious that isn't obvious until it's commented on. I feel like you just commented on something that it's like, this huge light bulb just went off in my head. Like this is foundational and it's fundamental and it's so incredibly important. And so I'm really grateful that you're willing to have this conversation with me specifically on the podcast, because you and I did have a really nice conversation recently where you were sharing a little bit about your work, and I got so much out of that conversation. And even something that you said to me on our conversation, I haven't stopped thinking about it. This idea of like that our body doesn't even know the difference when we've had like the loss of somebody. It's the same as if you're, like if you've been hit with a stick or you're being chased by a bear, like the way that our bodies react to that loss of something is the same as we react to pain or fear. So anyway, I'm super excited to dig in. So here's my first question for you. If I were to stand in for you for a day, so I'm Brian now, and what is the first thing I have to do or think in order to approach this idea of my job is to create connection? How do I do that?
Yeah, the first thing that that is going to sound real counterintuitive is knowing you want what you need from other people. Specifically, knowing the value that another person's experience can have for you, and then actively starting to seek it out. So I'll give you a simple example, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to feel good today? Like a little better today?
Heck yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So say I want to feel better today. Okay. So now whatever I want to feel is available in someone else's story. Right. So if you know that, how would you get the way you want to feel out of my story?
Well, I got to ask you questions about your story.
Okay. Yeah. What would be, and just don't overthink it. How could you get that quickly and simply just right now? What question might you ask?
What happened that allowed you to feel good about that experience?
Or if you have an experience that you're speaking to, you can simply say, what was the best part of your day, Ricky and Nikki? Sorry, I put the R in there. What was the best part of your day? Yeah. What's the best experience you had today? Right. How would you answer that right now?
Well, I just got back from an amazing walk on the Greenbelt by Park Center. And
what was it that made it amazing? Like, what
really made it amazing is it's quite cold out, but the sun was shining. And when you feel the sun on like your sweatshirt, it starts to warm your body. That feels amazing.
Yeah. So like paint that picture. Where were you when you had that experience? Like where you were walking and you went from cold to warm and could you describe it real quick?
Yeah. So walking down the path and having the experience of coming out from the trees, because you're pretty surrounded by trees.
Mm-hmm.
And there was you could see the river, and it's pretty low right now. So there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of geese just sitting in the river. And so you see the geese, and then you look up and there's the sun, and it's just like blasting down on me. Really amazing.
Yeah, like I can almost feel the warmth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we just stopped right there, what's the benefit to me of you sharing that experience? Like, what do you think I might have more now that you shared that story experience with me?
Well, you tell me, but I think that this helps neurons fire in your brain, right? Because you know what it feels like to be warm.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can invoke that feeling in your body of what it feels like to be warm.
Yeah.
And if that feels good to you, I'm guessing here. I don't know.
No, you're absolutely like, it's a fantastic assumption. So what I can outline is that, and what you're tapping into, like when you said, I'm pretty sure you've had this experience. The cool thing is when you ask somebody about their story or experience, when someone tells you a story, your brain experiences that story as your own. Mm-hmm. So when you were talking to me about walking, and I live on the same greenbelt right down there, right? So I get to go into similar experiences because my brain is hearing yours as my own. So that warmth, that like the energy that you have in telling that story, my brain tends to mirror. Mm-hmm. And so, and as you were telling that story, did you notice like kind of reliving the same, if you want to say just energy of the story?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so now you get to re-experience it, which does what we call amplification. It amplifies it in your brain. So now that memory is more available, which also means now your brain is more likely to look for those experiences in the future. It's kind of a way of like creating clarity. Like this is now, had you had that experience and nobody asked you about it ever.
Yeah.
Right. And you could have it again and again and again. Your brain will start to deprioritize that. Because what happens when I ask you about it and you're sharing it, the sharing it with another human being amplifies the value of that experience. Right. Okay. And I say that because how many times do we do things that other people would make other people happy, that we should be grateful for, but we don't really recognize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I've got this nice leather in my car, or I've got this, but because we're interacting with on a daily basis, we don't really get to like fully embrace it. But if somebody says, boy, how does it feel sitting down in your car in that awesome leather today? How did that? The next time, if somebody asks with authenticity about like, tell me, I want to know, I want to understand, like share this experience with me. What you'll know is the next time you get in your car, your brain is going to be more like, if you will, attuned to that experience, or rather, it'll be looking for it. It's the same way, and I'll almost predict in here, the next time you walk on the greenbelt, you'll notice that. Maybe at a higher level even than you did, but yet, and you'll even reference this conversation.
So now,
because it's literally
it
starting
creates
to
a
change
connection between you and I, because I told you the story.
Yeah. So now the connection happens because your experience, or like we realized mutual value in an individual's experience. And so the cool thing is, through just asking you questions, we both get connection. Right? Because my brain hears your story as my own, and I leave with value. And you also leave with value, right?
Because you just amplified something good about my experience by asking me about it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, your brain by itself, if nobody's asking you about your experience, is designed to remember at about 70 to 80% of the time what you did wrong, what you need to improve, what you didn't. At the end of the day, we remember by ourselves, unless prompted from outside, we remember the things we screwed up, right? That's why when you ask somebody, how's your day? And they don't say fine, which is the efficiency habitual answer.
I hate that answer.
If they don't say that, what do they generally talk about?
What didn't go well.
Right. because that is what their brain remembers it's because that's your brain's way of protecting itself. It's more important that when I went on that walk on the greenbelt, I remember that person that gave me a snide look than it was to remember the sun and how that felt. But here's the cool part. For me, if I'm, going back to how we started this, you identified I want to feel better. So now I'm looking for the specific parts in your experience that were good, broadly termed.
Yeah.
Because that's what, like, I don't have as much need for, tell me about the guy that glared at you.
Right. That's
right. That may or may not have value, but that experience that was exciting or engaging, that has mutual value. Right. And now that you've shared it, now your brain is able to prioritize it more. It's a simple, it's simple, but it's almost like too simple sometimes.
It's so good though. There's so much there about this idea of creating connection, and the value of the connection is okay, let me back up here. Because one of the things, and I don't know if you have heard this or agree or not, but as a sales coach, one of the fears that people often approach sales is like, I don't want to be seen as salesy because I don't want to be seen as if I'm just trying to get something out of somebody. So that feels manipulative. That feels gross. And so people really hold themselves back. So I spend a lot of time focusing on that. The idea here is to make it a collaborative experience. Yes. So it is about creating connection, and it isn't about you. You're there to be of service to the other person, as long as you have permission from them to do that. Right. And so I think when you said, I think at the beginning, you got to know what you need from other people and then actively seek it out. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah. The value that others can provide. Yeah.
That can provide. So if you know you want to know what it's like to experience something, you need to have some good questions that allow the person to focus on that aspect of their experience.
That will authentically have value to you, right? And that's the thing we actually have to, like, it takes some time to sort of develop, is that, it's not just you're telling me the story, as I'm actively looking, like, notice that was a follow-up, like I'm getting it, like, tell me how it felt, tell me where you were, because like that detail I was putting myself in the experience. And when we teach this to sales folks, not as like their sales process, but like, if you don't have connection, the sale is exponentially harder, especially if you have ongoing relationship as sales that you have to reapproach.
Yeah.
And so the key to approaching the conversation is, how do I make sure, and again, this is so counter to how we've been taught to listen, but what we teach is, how do I approach this conversation knowing in a way that I'm going to receive value and the other person is going to receive value, even if we don't do business together? Yes. Because now the questions change a bit. Like my favorite one is with real estate agents. Real estate agents ask the same question. Kind of house do you want? Where do you go? Like, all of the, we call projection questions, are important, but they don't create connection. You can ask somebody their goals all day, and your level of connection, like, you'll feel it. You'll feel like you did because, I know what this person wants, but they won't feel heard. It requires we have to get into their story. So one of the easy things we'll talk to a real estate agent about, it's like, before you ask them what they want, just stop and say, hey, of all the places you've lived, which one felt the most like home? And tell me about why it felt like home, and tell me about what it looked like, and tell me about where you were in that home. Right? Because now, like, the value to me as a real estate agent, right, is I understand, like, why this person thinks, and not just why this person thinks, but now I have a deeper understanding of what real estate means to people, what a house can look like, all of those. And it's going to be entertaining as shit. Sorry, I don't know if we.
No, that's okay.
And what I mean by that is like the simple form of value that I encourage people to look for most is the same value you get from your TV, from the movies, right? It was entertaining, it was fun, it was engaging.
Yeah.
Okay, like now I'm going to ask you about your experience, and actually it's my job to make it engaging.
That's so okay. So I feel like I could go so many ways with this.
Yeah, I know it's our problem too. We're gonna
There's so much good stuff here. Okay, so from a sales perspective, and the examples that you gave about the real estate agent asking those questions about, tell me, about the place that you live that felt the most like home. To me, I think a lot of times a counter way that sales is often taught is like, tell me, have you ever had a bad experience with a such and such, and what didn't go well about that? And I've never felt comfortable with those. I don't like that type of
and think about
philosophy.
The emotional state you're putting your client in.
Yes.
Because and here's critical to know: your medial prefrontal cortex, and without getting all that, your brain is going to Maya Angelou. People remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
Period. That's the only thing you have to remember about why that is not the best approach.
Yes.
It's a really good approach if you're only doing a one-time sale and you're never going to see the person again, you never care about them again, and you're going to shut your business down next week, so you're not worried about people thinking you're a jerk. Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Right? But if you want relationship-based sales, like really thinking about how whatever we said in the conversation is secondary to how they felt when they left.
Yes.
Because that is what their brain is going to remember. Their logical brain will think it was something you said. Your brain is designed to remember how it felt. Right. And so I love that you kind of went there, because so whenever someone calls my team for a speaking engagement, first question we ask them, tell me about the best speaker you ever hired. Tell me about the best event you ever ran. Tell me about the best workshop you ever like. And that question is so important that it's when I get on the call, that's the question I get to ask, because that is 100% learning for me.
Yeah.
I asked it like 2 months ago, and somebody told me about, they had a speaker that had like peacock feathers, and everybody had peacock feathers, and they were trying to balance them on their chin. And I just can't get over, like, how did that person get all those peacock feathers through
that's
the
what I'm like,
airport, right? Like, how did that go?
Yeah.
But so there's like these inherent levels of value in it. There was value because that story they told me was entertaining. There was value because now I'm learning about my industry, and the value of like, oh, now I know exactly what they expect and what they want, because what they've experienced is what they are planning for in the future.
Yeah. They're striving to reach that level of speaker, right?
Yeah. That and then there's underlying questions that you can get real rich, like, what was your part in making that speaking experience so great? Now I'm knowing their expectation. Now I'm learning about, like, oh wow, that was, how did you make it happen given budgetary restraints? And that, like, I want to know how they did it, because whatever they're going to do, they wouldn't do it if they haven't done something similar before. And that little, so if you want to call it memory device, whatever they want to do, they've experienced it before, is in a lot of ways the keys to the kingdom in terms of,
I feel like that was just a masterclass how you just broke that down.
Yeah. But think about how many times you've had a client outline their goals clearly, know all the right things to say, and you put the package together and you deliver it, and they, oh, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Because they told you who they want to be, they didn't tell you who they are. And until they feel connected, until they feel like you understand who they are, right? And until we understand who they are, right? Like, and we can now see that, oh, who you are and who you want to be is over. I'm making a plan for over here, and you actually need the plan right here. But they won't tell you that if you only ask them their goals. Everybody wants to make $1 million. But the best goal, like if I'm trying to help somebody make money, the best goal is like, what's the most you made? What's the most you made in a year, and how did it feel? Tell me about the biggest, the biggest success you had with money. right? That's the place, because now we know where to start, right? But now we know what success means to them too, because I might be talking a different language.
Yeah.
And that story is what now all those stories now do the other thing that salespeople don't talk about, is when we don't have connection because we've gotten into this, like, asking the same questions every week, like feel like, oh, there's nothing to learn, then we get burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And the burnout is a sign of disconnection. We're going through the motions. We're asking the questions. We know we have this cool little device of, like, if I ask you this, then you're going to sell this, and we can replicate it. But then but then whether you're the salesperson or you have them on your team, they start to burn out. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to, just in the last year, like, salespeople, we teach them this, and they're like, this is why I got into sales, they'll say, because I love being around people, and yet recently I've started to hate it.
And you think it's because they're missing the connection?
Oh, I know it's because they're missing the connection.
Yeah.
Because at least those that come up, right? Because, like, if we don't see the value in others' stories, if we're not consistently seeing, like, really realizing the value in other stories, what happens is that we start to lose the value in our own. Right? That's the need of connection. Like, by yourself, your brain is designed to basically have you go hide in a cave, right, in the corner. Everything else is learned. Right. And it's learned through connection and through other people. And historically, that's been through stories. It's only recently that we've just kind of got enamored with learning from just knowledge, and, right, the best way to do it, and not how it's done better, which is through story, how every culture historically has done it at some point in time.
Okay. So I feel like my brain is going in so many directions. There's so many places I want to go with you, but here's where I wonder if you're willing to share this piece of it, because sometimes, please point out any places where you disagree. Sometimes I think people feel like nobody asked me about my story. And because nobody asked me about my story, how am I supposed to amplify the good parts of my story? What do you say to that?
Yeah. So I'm going to address it through how we've been taught to listen in a way that leaves us so disconnected.
Okay.
We've been taught one-sided listening, right? If I think that, like, I need someone to listen to me to feel connected, that tells me, and I'm not, we all fall into this category. There is listening because I care about you, and there is listening because I'm interested in your story. And they're not the same. The care about you listening is, hey, Nikki, tell me about your day. I know you've had a hard day, and I know you want somebody to, you probably need a place to vent about your hard day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I tell you that, if I frame up listening that way, what's going to happen after about 15 minutes of you dumping your day on me?
You're going to be really tired of listening.
Yeah. So you can predict it. Like, it's one side, like, I'm going to lose energy. And eventually what'll happen is you're going to apologize.
Yeah.
Right. And what are you going to say? I'm sorry for taking up all of your.
Yeah. Right? I'm sorry for dumping all of my bad day on you, or I'm sorry for just venting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've created disequilibrium.
Yeah.
I am listening to help you. Even though I haven't said it, I'm listening I want to be a good friend. I want to listen. Now there's a time kind of thing going on. If I give you 10 minutes, you need to give me 10 minutes, right? Because there's not an equal exchange of value happening, right? But what changes when I say something like, hey, Nikki, can you, like, I've kind of had a crap day, actually. Can you tell me about the best thing that happened in your day, so that I don't think the world sucks? Now what happens when you start talking for 10 minutes about walking on the green belt?
Well, I'm thinking about it now from a place of wanting to make your day better by telling you about the best parts of my day.
Yeah.
So now
it
feels like an exchange.
Yeah. You're helping me.
By sharing my story.
Yeah. Because I've clarified for you the value your story has for me.
Yes.
Right. We call this like the paradox of help. Right. So many of us are taught to listen to help. Salespeople are taught to listen to help. Like, what do you want? What are your needs? And, oh, I can be of assistance. Right. And we think that we're helping them. Right. But in fact, we're only helping ourselves. Right. And that's what they feel like, because that's why they pull back. Like, well, I'm not sure. I'm not clear. And it's like that's actually like, I'm not sure if I need to help you yet. And what happens here, what we think about is 75% of people admit to waiting to the very last minute to ever ask for help. And the majority of those people report that when they do ask for help, they don't like the experience.
No.
So simply put, none of us like to ask for help, nor do we like to be given help, right? Here's the counter to that. 80% of people, if they're asked, right, to be helpful, 80% of people not only reply yes, but report enjoying the experience. Now, as long as the help is simple and clear and meets a few criteria, for sure.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is allowing the other person to be helpful. If we know it really sucks when, or like getting help is hard, right? Being the person receiving help is hard, then why are we putting people in that position all the time?
Yes.
We should put people in that position when they absolutely need it. But to get what we need out of a conversation, we have them help us. And so when we go back to the core part that we started this from, I don't need someone to listen to me, because when you tell your story, my brain experiences it as my own, and I feel less lonely.
Right.
Because that's the connection part. The mutual value is, and you even said it, oh, you've probably experienced something like that. Like your story gave value and validation to my story. Right? And just that sharing piece. And so we kind of reinforce it, like you get it by giving it.
Yeah, like, okay, so I don't know. Have you ever heard about the Benjamin Franklin effect? I did a podcast about it where
I kind of remember like Benjamin Franklin sales thing where it was like it was like 20 years ago. Anyway,
so one of my clients, Jonathan Bailey Strong, came on and he shared about this because he had shared about it in our group. And I was like, I've never heard of this. It's so amazing. But I feel like some of what you're saying feels somewhat kind of like what he had done. It was like a way for him to turn his adversity or his adversaries into friends.
Sure.
And the way that he went about it is he would find something that they were really interested in, something they were passionate about, and he would ask for help around it. It would be a small ask. And in this case, it was like they were telling the story about how he asked some guy who was, prided himself on reading the best books. And so he asked him if there was a particular book that he thought he should read. And if he had that book, would he loan it to him? And so the guy went from being an adversary to becoming an advocate.
And where I would push into that. So I think the technique is great for sort of what he's doing. Where that won't necessarily build connection. It can. It's not a all or nothing. There's like connection is sort of, as we're seeing, it's like a continuum, right? And that's the biggest thing. Like, I'm not connected or I am. No, like where we started, you are connected. Do you see it? Right. And the more, then you can grow it. Right. But when I look at that, like asking for actual help, tell me how to do it, will not give me what I need. Now, that technique is great for getting the other person on your side. It is not great for getting what you need from the other person. And here's why. There's a really functional difference. Go back to this question we started with. if I would have said, I'm having a bad day, tell me how to have a better day, versus the question I did ask you,
Yes.
which was what was good about your day.
Yes.
It's a really different experience, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, next time, like, you try it out, go home. Next time you're having a bad day and ask your partner to tell you how to have a good day. See how that goes. Because what happens, we call this like status disequilibrium. If I ask you to help in that way, my brain is like, oh, they think they're better than me. I've actually kind of given them that, right?
Yeah.
Versus like when it's the story that I'm asking sort of help from, and I use it's almost like an abbreviated help, right? Like, just tell me the story, because it's mutual help, right? But I'm identifying the why it feels selfish at first is because I'm identifying the value to me. But as you experienced when you were sharing it, the value is mutual.
Yes.
And that's what allows the conversation. You'll notice that, like, when people start using some of the simple questions, like, what was the best part of your day? Or how did you get over a challenge today? Or what was the coolest thing? You just little changes, you'll see automatic, like start sparking bigger conversations.
Yeah.
In just these surprisingly easy ways, right? Like it's almost overwhelming. Like, oh, wow. Hey, okay, I only have 5 minutes here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But that, because we're designed to return to the campfire every night and share our experiences.
Yeah.
Not return to the campfire and tell somebody how to do something.
Right.
Right.
Thank you so much for helping make that distinction in my mind. It's so much more clear to me now around this idea of that this is a mutual, and this is really the difference of creating connection versus allowing somebody to be more in a position of power.
Yeah. And think about it, because I'm sure you get asked all the time, from people building their businesses or doing things. Hey, could I sit with coffee and, talk to you over coffee and get your advice on how I should do it? And you get into this like, okay, but I feel like now I'm giving something for free, right? Versus like, if I'm looking for a mentor, like, hey, could we sit down for coffee? I'd love to hear how you did it.
Yeah.
I would love to, like, I've heard some snippets about how you started your business, and I would just love to know the story.
Yeah.
It's a different feeling, isn't it?
It is a different feeling. I'll tell you, I've been doing these free trainings once a month now. I think we might have talked about this in our call. And for the first time ever, I tell my full story about starting my business. And it wasn't something I wanted to do. I was working with a coach, and he's like, no, this is what you're going to do, Nikki. And I was like, oh, nobody cares. I don't care. I don't think I need to tell it. And I can't tell you how many people who are already clients who are on the free training that have come back and been like, it was so great to hear your story in that way. Like, it somehow connected us back to connection in a deeper way.
And you just identified with a exclamation point why that first order of business is so important. Identifying what you need from their story. As you said, nobody cares. Nobody's interested in my story. That is a universal feeling.
Yeah.
And the importance of me identifying where your story has value is that you and everyone else is sitting there believing that their story, their experience, what they do on their day-to-day, nobody's interested in. And what happens when people start showing interest is that mechanism shifts.
Yeah.
And the more I know my story has value, the easier it is for me to see the value in other people's stories.
Yes.
And with that, compassion, empathy, all of those things, right?
Yes.
But that counterintuitive, I have to identify the value to me in your story, is the mechanism through which you're able to start feeling more and more like your story has value. Even and especially the tough parts of the story.
Yeah.
Right? The things that you went through, the things that you got over. right? That you don't want to volunteer to anybody. You don't want to, hell, like most of us, we don't want to think about it. But I feel like, and for me, I lost my dad a couple of years ago, and so much of seeing the value in my grief. When someone asks about it, I'm able to share the story because I know that story now has value for the other person. And when we were going through a lot of that and developing a lot of this framework, we find that, like, in the midst of grief, ask somebody what they're most proud of doing. And just, you might wait with some Kleenex.
Yeah.
But, like, when else are they going to get a chance to talk about how proud they are that they're showing up, that they're getting out of bed, that they're moving forward, that they're right?
Yeah.
And again, that, like, it initially feels selfish. Like, tell me about your story, because that whatever you're experiencing, I may experience. And so how you're getting through is immensely valuable to me. Right.
Yeah.
And now you don't have to feel like you're sharing your challenge as a weight that you're adding to me. Now I'm saying, how are you getting through it? How are you keeping your head above water? And now our stories are overlapped.
Right.
Because I see myself in your story and you see yourself in mine, even if I'm not sharing my story.
Right.
Yeah.
So good.
It's a really fun is a weird way to do that when I just talked about grief, but I think it's how we're meant to. Yeah. I think it's the more, and I'm about 4 years into this right now, that I've just literally dedicated, as they say, all my time and treasure into this. But I believe more and more it's how we were designed, not just to communicate, but to learn, to grow. Like, it's how, and I think we've gotten away from it. But as you stated with, we see parts of it in all different types of communication. So we, and all we've been working on in the last 4 years with Finding Good is how to create a framework so we can create it more consistently, more confidently, and in a way that benefits, both people or entire organizations, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm getting to my end of my time with you, of what I committed or got you to commit with me. So I want to start to wrap up. This has been so insightful. I'm so excited for people to get to hear you speak about this and learn from you. And I hope people will go get your book. And at some point soon in the future, I'm saying this in hopes that there will be a podcast of you, but I know that you've got some great content out on social media. But what is the best way for people to take a next step with you?
Yeah, we're
asking these out of order, but I feel like it's appropriate right now.
You're fine. So check out, as we continue to update, findinggood.com, but apparently my computer froze. Oh, there it goes. But going on to findinggood.com, because we have monthly, maybe even bi-monthly, we're doing these connection challenges where we group folks together. We're in the midst of one right now, which is super fun. But then we also have a membership area where you can go and actually practice, but, like, we're starting to pour resources into that. We've got a ton of resources we're starting to add, one of which is, and I did a sort of a kind of podcast, if you will, where we call it the connection map. So it's really the framework, which is 4 areas, right? Awareness, agency, accountability. It's really a way of, like, how do we know what good looks like, how we created good, what was the impact, and actually a way of taking all the way from experience to purpose, making sure the other person's, making sure our experience has purpose. That framework, I'm doing little podcasts where I actually just record the conversation where I'm connecting with someone else, finding connection through all sorts of random things. We don't even know what we're going to talk about when we jump on the call, which is really fun. Anyway, there's one of those on YouTube. You can watch it. But if you go in the membership area, we're going to be populating that with all of those videos and those places to interact. And then next week here in Boise. We have our 2-day experience.
I'm so bummed I can't go to this because I'm already committed to it. I'm actually delivering a training that same day, one of those days. But yeah. But then after that, so this won't air before your event. But are you going to do another one?
Yeah, so we'll be doing the
I want to know about it.
Yeah, we'll be doing the experience quarterly. We haven't put the date on it, but it should be in March, the 2-day experience. And then we have the certification program, which is we call it the certification just because we wanted to, check off list kind of thing. But it used to be 10 weeks straight, but now it's spread over 4 months. You meet every other week, and it's designed so that, like, not only do you learn how to do this, but it's really designed so that you learn how to kind of teach people and create these experiences for others, whether you're a leader or your team or your clients. So we have a lot of coaches in there. We have a lot of leaders. We have school superintendents. It's a really good cross member. But through the certification, you actually create your own case study. So not only are you learning how to do it, but in the process, you're going to actually have an outline. Here's how I'm going to apply it. Here's where I'm going to create connection. Here's what we're looking at. And then you create that. So you're actually adding, if you will, to the body of knowledge through that. And then people that are in the certification, at least for now, have access to any certification program in the future. We're going to eventually probably have to shut that off. But we have people that have been through the certification program like 3 full times because it's designed to be engaging in interaction, not just me dumping a bunch of information, but like, how do we explore it? Where do we try it? Because as you've said a lot of times in the last hour, holy cow, there's a lot of places we can apply this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Brian, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, for all that you shared. This was a really good learning opportunity for me personally. I'm hoping for the listener as well. My brain is like, I feel like you blew my mind a few times today, and I'm really grateful for you and the work that you're doing. So tell everybody again, best way to connect with you is to go to the website. Findinggood.com.
Or just email me at brian@findinggood.com. I'm pretty available. So
there you go. There you go. All of Brian's contact information will be in the show notes. Go connect with him, go grab his book, and watch the TED. Where do we find the TEDx talk? Is that also just YouTube?
That's on YouTube. Yeah. Okay. It's on YouTube. Yeah. Or
what's it called?
What a 15-year-old meth addict taught me about leadership. And you can see the origins of question development in the because that TEDx was in 2016. No, 2018 or 2019. Anyway. And then where we've come with questions from there. It's kind of fun. But amazing. Well, thank you, Nikki. This was fantastic. And now I'm looking forward to going for a walk on the green belt myself. There you go. In the sun. Beautiful outside today. It is fantastic. All right. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. Please connect with myself and with Brian. What was your biggest takeaway from today's episode? Have a great rest of your day. Wishing you continued success.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.
Are you ready to increase your confidence in your sales conversations? I have a gift for you that is going to show you exactly how to do that. It is my Closing the Sale ebook. It's all about leveling up your confidence, giving you language to use, how to seamlessly move somebody through the sales process. And you can get it right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. Go grab it.